The answer is, we don't know. There isn't a scientific consensus on how abiogenesis could could happen. That said, I am pretty sure the best explanation is that just the right basic elements could form a continuous chain reaction. This chain reaction would stabilize, and as more elements get incorporated, grow more complex. The more complex it gets, the easier it is to maintain, since variety would be beneficial to the cycle. This would continue until you get an organism, then a cell, etc. Not counting crystals, do things usually become more complex given time, or do they tend toward disorder and become less complex? At one point, the sun was much different. It exploded and became the star that it is today, expelling gases and minerals that now orbit it. Those masses would reform into planets, comets, asteroids, etc. Some people would argue that that is more complex. Usually is a tricky term to use. It's not usual for meteors to catastrophically strike the Earth, but it happens. It is not by a it may not be a recurring, or maybe it is. But life did start somehow. The answer would be unusual. It's okay to believe life started somehow, as long as that somehow isn't intelligent, isn't an intelligent designer. True? It's okay to believe that it was an intelligent designer as long as you have evidence for it. Right now, we have no evidence whatsoever to make a substantial claim as to how life began. To say that, in that ignorance, we must attribute this to a supernatural force is a dishonest way to proceed. Additionally, we have yet to encounter anything in life that has a supernatural explanation once we apply science to it. To think this would happen, to think that this would be an exception gives me great doubt. Would you agree? Um, so, so, you need evidence to believe in an intelligent designer, and no evidence to believe in an object in a chaotic environment of weathering, because more complex in weathering. Excuse me. So, you need evidence to believe in an intelligent designer and no evidence to believe in an object in a chaotic environment of weathering. It becomes more complex. To the point it decides to fight against an inevitable for a while. That's not what I said. What were the very first words that I said? Quote, the answer is, we don't know. There isn't a scientific consensus on how abiogenesis could happen. I then gave an explanation of what I thought the basis. I then gave an explanation of what I thought the best case was. There is no evidence for this, and I know of that I know of. I have not studied the subject, and I was simply stating my understanding of the subject. Secondly, at no point did you, quote, decide to live. You were just born. Abiogenesis didn't choose anything. It happened. You don't know. Well, then how can you be an atheist? First, let me explain something here. Oops. First, my ignorance on the understanding of abiogenesis does not regard disbelief in a God. If there was evidence that God was responsible, then there would be a case for that. Second, I'm an atheist because there is no evidence to support belief in a God. I would now like to flip this discussion back on you. If you wish to proceed under this assumption that God is responsible for creating life, what evidence do you support this with? What evidence do you have to show a God exists? You say, quote, second, I'm an atheist because there is no evidence to support belief in a God. Well, what evidence would you need in order for you to believe in a God? For me, the fact that we have time and matter present is proof for me that there is an eternal God. And you say, quote, the fact that we have time and matter present is proof. What would be the evidence that a God is responsible? If I find a city that is completely demolished, I could come up with many theories about what happened. I could hypothesize all I want, bombs, riots, God, but without evidence that any one of those was the cause, I can't attribute it to it. I can't contribute it to it. Until God is proven to be the source, I can't accept that as evidence. The same is true for abiogenesis and other scientific theories. But without evidence, you know no God would have demolished such a city. But you do know that you do know that matter and energy, time actually, was always here without any evidence to show otherwise. True? We can show that all matter existed in a singularity 13 billion years ago, if my understanding of cosmology is accurate. Our understanding of physics can't compute that circumstances lead to that, but we do know that much so far. If I agreed on faith that God did it and I asked how, you could only say, I don't know. That is why God isn't the honest answer right now. It is no evidence and explains nothing. Observing matter is like finding the city. You still have to explain it. And it also existed in some state 14 billion years ago, true? Our understanding of physics can't compute what circumstances led to the singularity. Just don't believe an eternal God was behind it, but believe eternal matter in some state to be. True? I have no clue. I have absolutely nowhere close to understanding the understandings of physics and mathematics it would take to have an honest belief of what came before the Big Bang. I don't think there's evidence to support multiverse yet. Support theory, string theory is still being untangled. Quantum mechanics are still a mystery. We are just now finding smaller particles with the LHC. We just broke the speed of light, etc. To say we know the answer, let alone a supernatural one, would be laughably arrogant. But you do know that there is no God behind it. Or how could you be an atheist? No. I haven't been given an evidence that God is responsible. I don't know that God is behind it. But I have no reason to believe there is. Being an atheist means that you don't believe in any of the claims about deities. If you rewrite what you said, it would say, quote, how do you know there is no God behind it when you don't believe in any gods? There is no evidence, so I treat it like other answers that don't have evidence. I don't believe it. then I don't think you're an atheist. Sounds like you're more of an agnostic, which is smart on your part. Okay, this will be continued on another video. Bye.